Good afternoon and welcome to the Everything You Need to Know About EDFacts Data Quality webinar. My name is Doreen Fay. I'm with the EDFacts Partner Support Center, and I'm going to go over a couple housekeeping items before we jump into the webinar. First, in order to cut down on background noise, we have placed everyone on mute upon entry into the meeting. However, at the end of the presentation, we will have a question and answer portion. So all you have to do is type your question into the Q&A panel, not the chat panel, below the participant list, and then click send, and we will answer your questions to the best of our ability. We do have a brief survey available at the end of the webinar, so we do ask that everybody fill that out so that we can improve on our future webinars. And finally, a copy of the presentation and a link to the recording will be shared on the EDFacts community site once the webinar is done. And we will also include the presentation link in a future version of the Partner Support Update. So the agenda today, we will have an introduction. We're going to jump into data quality in a nutshell, the data quality report format, new items this year, the data quality review calendar, available resources, and finally we'll have that question and answer session at the end. As mentioned, my name is Doreen Fay. I'm with the Partner Support Center. For the presentation today, Julia Redmond from the EDFacts Data Management Team will be presenting, and we also have Beth Sinclair from the Data Management Team here as well. And Liz Finning has joined us from the Elementary and Secondary Branch. So the participants for today, we have invited the EDFacts coordinators, the IDEA Part B data managers, assessment directors, homeless coordinators, and also the N or D coordinators. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Julia.
Awesome. Thanks, Doreen. Okay, so first we're just going to start out with some level setting, why we do data quality, and I think most of us are aware of this, but at the highest level, making sure that all the data we collect about the students, the teachers, the principals, and the programs are being represented accurately. So that's at the core of why we do all these things. And so the EDFacts data quality objectives, before the data is submitted, we provide states the opportunity to correct issues before submission to reduce burden. And so we're providing some of those business rules at the outset on the EDFacts initiative site, as well as just through the EDFacts submission system with the immediate feedback you receive through ESS. Then during the submission, once you've submitted the data, what we call post-submission, we try to provide actionable feedback to states so that you can correct issues, or if it's just an anomaly, provide a data note during the resubmission window. And then finally, after the final data comes in, we ensure, in order to ensure that we're using the data appropriately, we provide detailed documentation about the anomalies and the data quality issues in the public file documentation, and that does include the state notes that are provided through the data quality process. So a quick in a nutshell, look at what the post-submission data quality review process entails. And so before the data comes in, we work with the program offices to define those post-submission data quality checks. So working with the data stewards to outline the checks, look at the thresholds that we've set, and finalize those. And then once the data comes in, the data management team and program office teams prepare the data quality reports, review the data to identify the anomalies and the unexpected values, looking at timeliness, completeness, and accuracy. And then as we review all of those findings, we take into consideration the state submission plan, SSP comments, the previously reported PSC tickets, comments through the OMB Max site, usually are only associated with the IDEA collections, and then any comments that come in through the EMAPS assessment metadata. And so program offices may alter comments or remove comments based on state's explanation that's provided prior to or during the submission. And then we deliver those data quality reports back out to the states through the Partner Support Center. States have an opportunity to respond and provide those detailed data notes during the resubmission window. And then we complete a final review once the final data comes in, assess the final quality, inform internal data use, and then that public file documentation and data notes. Okay, and so this is just a little kudos and a shout out to states that have provided some extensive comments in the state submission plan ahead of submission or through the Partner Support Center tickets, OMB Max, or in the EMAPs. And it's pretty small font, but the context that is provided ahead of time, this first example is looking at some differences that may, within a file, across category sets, subtotals, and education unit totals. And so they provided some context about what's happening with charter schools that will result in some differences. And so the program offices can take that information into consideration when they start to see those differences and understand what's going on and alter the comment. The next example, just noting a substantial shift and just being aware that there is a substantial shift in the number of teachers reported from the previous year, and acknowledging that you, state, have looked at this and know that there may be some discrepancies that the program office may observe when the review begins. And then this third example, 95% of the LEAs, so not all LEAs are included in the file, so that may show as a decrease in the number of participants, for example. And then the next one, trouble reporting a piece of data which may result in a lower number of former English learners in that fourth year. Just really helpful context as the program offices begin the review. And this last one is another example of that category set subtotal EUT comparison, education unit total comparison. So in the assessment files, they weren't able to collect demographic data on some of the students, and so those students are not included in the category set by race, ethnicity, or the category set by sex, gender. So explaining why those differences will exist in the data. All of this is really helpful, and so message here is keep that coming, keep providing a lot of context, and it's used as part of the review. All right, so getting into specifically the data quality review that's coming up next week, coming your way next week. So the December files that came in on December 12th, the end of last year, we've been completing the review with the program offices, and those reports will be delivered over to you by next Wednesday. And those reports will include the assessment data, the IDEA assessment review, home list review, English learners, and Title III, teachers, and then accountability, those new status indicators that were reported for the first time this year. And those last four, homeless, EL, teachers, and accountability, are what were formerly known as CSPR. This year, there wasn't a CSPR, so it's broken out by the topic areas. So it's not that there's new reviews happening. All of it was happening under the CSPR umbrella in the past. So none of this should be new. All right. A quick look at the data quality reports themselves. And so you should be familiar if you worked through the data quality review in previous years. The data quality reports last year included 3 different tabs: a CSPR tab, a CDQR tab, which is the coordinated data quality review, and that is the assessment data review, and then the IDA assessment. And so, as we saw on the last slide, we'll break it out into the specific categories, the specific groups of data, and it will include an assessment, an IDA assessment, a homeless, an EL, a teachers, and an accountability. And so each of those tabs will look very similar. There will be some core columns that are included. There will be some assessment-specific columns in the assessment tab for the assessment types and the subgroups, but generally it's the same identification information at the beginning, and there will be, in the second bullet, an issue ID number, a rule ID number, and that rule ID number is associated with one of the rules in the Business Rules Lingual Inventory, which I'll talk about on the next slide. It will contain a comments to states column that will contain a description of the issue and actionable steps to take. And then finally, it will include the state response column. So that will be where you will respond with context about the issue and how you addressed it. Okay, so something new this year. So along with the data quality reports, we're providing some additional information related to the assessment data. And so in previous years, you might remember, it looked something like this. So in previous years for the assessment review, year-to-year comments, year-to-year issues were drafted in comment form. And so it was a lot of information in a written paragraph form. This year we're shifting over to a new report that is in Excel in a table format to allow you to view that information in a more digestible and, we hope, actionable way. So it will look like this table at the top. So in the data quality report, we will note that there is a year-to-year issue, and that comment will look like this comment in the green box. So there is a year-to-year issue that exists, and please refer to the accompanying year-to-year report for the details. And it will contain the specific data that we're comparing, the differences that meet the threshold, and then flagging that it meets the threshold. So this is for all the assessment files, 175, 178, 179, 185, 188, and 189, so both the achievement and the participation. We will have reports for this, and it will be a standalone report separate from the data quality reports. Okay. Another new item this year, and this is a change because we think the assessment comments, the assessment year-to-year comments in this format will really be helpful. We want to make sure that we deliver that information to you securely and make sure we do not disclose any student information. So these states, you will receive an email from the Partner Support Center the same way you've done every other data quality review, but within it, it will contain a link to your data quality report. And it's a hyperlink, and so it will open up, you click the link, it'll open up in the IES File Transfer Systems page, which is displayed here. There will be one box there that has to enter a password. And there are no browser limitations, there's no requirements for this. Anyone can access the link that has the password. So the password will be sent in a separate email for security purposes, and that password will expire in 30 days, but the review period is ending in 30 days, so there's no use for after the 30-day period. So what you'll do is you'll type the password into the field and click enter, and then you'll be taken to the IES file sharing page. So once this opens up, you'll see there will be two reports to download. One will be the data quality report, and one will be the assessment year-to-year report. And you'll check the two boxes beside them, click download, and as you would with any file, download it directly to your computer and then save it to wherever you would save your reports typically. All right, so once you've received the data quality report and the assessment year-to-year report, you will only provide responses in the data quality report. So you'll enter responses in the data quality report, and that is what will be delivered back to the Partner Support Center, the same way you've done in previous years as an attachment to the email. But we want to be sure that you don't deliver back the assessment year-to-year report. That's a tool for you to use in your review. No need to send that back. Just include your year-to-year comments directly in the data quality report. There will be a row in there with the issue and a field for you to enter your response associated with any year-to-year issues. So only deliver back the data quality report as an attachment to PSC as you typically would in the past. So, yes, DQ reports, no assessment. All right. So the business rules single inventory is something that we've mentioned a couple times. I know the PSC support update has contained a couple updates, and so just a little history. At Stats DC 2 years ago, we received some feedback from states that it would be really helpful to have a single location for all of the EDFacts business rules. And so we responded and created a business rules single inventory and released it for the first time last year. And we're in a transition period, and we're getting ready to post up the newest version of that. For folks that aren't familiar, it contains the ESS business rules, the EDFacts submission system, the DMS, the data management system rules, EMAPs, the metadata rules, assessment, so the post-submission assessment, ACGR, and the IDEA data quality rules. And in this new version that we'll be releasing, it will also include those rules that were formerly CSPR, so the home list, the English learner, and the other ESEA files collected on December 12th. Any rules associated with those will also be included in the business rules single inventory. And that will be posted by next Wednesday when we deliver over the business rules, the data quality reports to states. And we understand that ideally all of this information is provided ahead of time, and so the future releases of the business rules single inventory will be released as the typical ESS business rules guide would be released, which is a couple months ahead of the due date for these files. And so in the future, these business rules single inventory versions will be released ahead of time. But the next version that will have some new rules associated with homeless English learners and some of the other files will be released by next Wednesday. And just to tie that back to the data quality reports, so within the business rules single inventory, it will have a rule ID and the details about the thresholds and what that rule is checking. And within each of the data quality reports, there will be a rule ID with each of the comments. So you'll be able to have the details about that rule, and you can tie it back to the reports that you've received. And this is just a note, internally within EDFacts, we've been working on some improvements to the EDFacts submission system business rules that will decrease the effort to implement and maintain the rules internally. And the next version of the business rules single inventory will contain a couple of new ESS business rules. And I just wanted to call out that there will be a new assessment metadata misalignment rule. Similar to those that are familiar with the assessment post-submission review, we do an assessment metadata alignment, so comparing what's reported in the assessment files in ESS to what's reported in the assessment metadata and making sure that those alignments are matching. And in the future, there will be an ESS business rule that will provide the feedback through ESS when the ESS files are submitted if there is a misalignment. So we're excited that that rule will be implemented so you can receive the feedback further up in the life cycle. And just to tie it back to the specific example of the assessment metadata. So along the left side of this table is an example of ESS, the ESS submitted data, assessment data. So grade 3 for all of the 3 assessment types, the regular with and without accommodations, for 4 performance levels. So performance level 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then the student counts associated with those combinations. And then in the EMAPS assessment metadata for grade 3, for all of those assessment types, the state has only provided 3 performance levels. And so in this case, the counts that were reported for the performance level 4 would be dropped out when proficiency rates are calculated. And so we wanted to call this out. Again, this is something that the new metadata, the new ESS business rule will trigger. But we wanted to call this out as an example. I know that there were a couple states that reached out. The assessment data is used to populate the SPP APR for the IDEA programs, and there were some inconsistencies in the data, and it was a result of a misalignment that exists. And so in the delivery of the comments next week, if states have metadata misalignments, they will be noted in those comments next week. All right, an overview of the data quality reviews coming your way or in the works right now. So what we were specifically focusing on for this presentation is that those three in red, the assessment, the IDA assessment, and then all of those files associated with the CSPR in previous years. And so the CCD directory is happening. The IDA discipline, exiting, and personnel has the longer duration, is also in the works. And then next week, we'll be delivering over the assessment. The other note on this slide, the CCD reviews are done in DMS, and the GFSA data quality review is also in DMS for the first time this year. So that will be coming to states in April. And the next round of data quality review, I'm going to jump back to this slide. So this ACGR and ESCA due February 13th, just giving a little primer on that, similar to how we outlined it for the December. So the February data quality review will be delivered by 4/19/19, and that will include ACGR, neglected or delinquent, migrant, Title I, and a couple other, not random, but a couple other files that are due that were due on February 13th. And that final review, or the final submission of those files, will be due on May 15th. So if you remember the data quality report visual that we showed that had the multiple tabs, when we deliver this batch, there will be an ACGR tab, an NRD tab, a migrant tab, and a Title I tab, and then another tab, a miscellaneous tab, yes. All right, and resources that are available out on the community site. So a couple TA docs, just pointing you back to these were released last year or maybe the year before, but Writing Good EDFacts data notes. So I stress the importance and that we use these, just a couple of tips about providing a good data note that can help with the review. There's an assessment data and metadata alignment checklist associated with the visual that I showed where the misalignments exist. There's a little bit more information about that. And then we held previous webinars about data quality for GFSA, NRD, directory, homeless, and then the assessment of the graduation data. And those are out on the community site. And then we also have our community listserv for you to communicate with your fellow peers. And just wanted to take the opportunity for the states that did participate in the OMB package process, the 60-day comment period. Can't thank you enough for the detailed and thoughtful responses that we received through that process. And so just wanted to take the opportunity to thank everyone who participated in that and provided comments. Working through the 30-day package right now, should come out, I think, in the next month or so. You'll receive a notification in the PSC support update on that. But thank you again for the feedback. We've taken all of it into consideration, and there will be changes in the 30-day package. And here we are with questions. So we'll open it up. You can use the Q&A panel on the right side of the screen to ask questions.
So we have had a couple questions. I'm going to read through what we have received and some of the answers we've provided, and then there's a couple, Julia, I'll need your help to work with that. So the first one was asking about when they can resubmit files that were previously the CSPR files. So you can resubmit the EDFacts files at any time up until 11:59 and 59 seconds p.m. on March 27th, that's a Wednesday. For the assessment metadata survey, the reopen period is going to be March 18th through March 27th. So March 27th, once we hit midnight, we will take a snapshot of all of the data. So as long as everybody can get their data in up until that time. Next question is, will this webinar be available? So it will be available on the EDFacts community site and also in the weekly support update, but we'll respond back to everybody and send this out as a link as well. Okay. We have a question. I may not be remembering this correctly, but it seems like IDEA assessment issues were in both the IDEA assessment tab and in the assessment report. Will they be duplicated again this year? And if so, do we have to respond in both tabs or spreadsheets?
It's only Max, I think.
So,
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So the IDEA tab will contain only IDEA specific. There are a couple cases in the assessment tab where it is the subgroup CWD, children with disabilities, included in a comment. We tried to reduce the duplication of that, and there is coordination across OESE and OSEP to make sure that anything that is heard through the OSEP review is also informed, but the OESE review is also informed by that. So there's communication across. If you would like to provide it in the assessment tab, that is fine. I mean, that would work.
Another question, do you also plan on updating the master file of record layouts for 2018-19?
Is that the business rule of single inventory?
If you are referencing the business rule single inventory, maybe you can clarify in the chat.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the master record layout would be.
Okay, we'll come back to that one. Let's see here. Is there guidance on how the 2020 variants and data submitted to EDFacts?
That's a common threshold used in the data quality checks for the year-to-year. It's used across a lot of them. That would be included. That's a common threshold used for a lot of the data quality checks in the year-to-year checks. So the idea being that if the change from prior year to current year is both greater than 20 students and a greater than a 20% difference, that will be flagged. I'm not sure, that's contained in the business rule language text when it's triggered, saying what the complaint is.
Okay. Next question, are there business rules that are published that allow states a window as to how the department sends the DQ question?
So the business rules single inventory will serve as that resource for states. So the business rules single inventory will include not only the system business rules, but also the post-submission checks that are being delivered out next week. And that will allow states to prepare and plan ahead of time and be aware of the types of checks that the program offices are completing after the due date.
Okay. Next question, for NRD on the submission, was there an area for state comment on data submission?
If you have a comment related to NRD submission, you could always use the state submission plan to provide additional context or send a note to the Partner Support Center. If the question was about whether the NRD submission in ESS had a location to provide some context, we would prefer that you provide it through the state submission plan in that new data quality anomaly or submission comment field in those fields in the SSP.
Or the EDFacts coordinator can also put a comment into the SSP for them, for the NRD coordinator.
Yes, yes.
And so a clarification for the previous question, are there business rules that are published that allow states a window as to how the department produces the data quality questions?
That might be a good topic to dig into at Stats DC a little bit. Right now, there's not a window into the detailed process. I think we're getting at the process where we create the data quality rules and set the thresholds and what that looks like. So if that is what you were thinking, right now that doesn't exist, but if there might be an opportunity at Stats DC for us to talk about that.
Okay, and for the master file record layouts question, we're gonna look into that a little bit deeper and get back to you about that. Okay, these have been some great questions. We're going to keep it open for a little while longer in case there are additional ones.
And I'll just jump to the next slide to say if you have. Oh wait, do we have a link? Oh, the survey.
Yep, so if there are any more questions coming in, again, we're going to leave this open for a little bit longer, but before you jump off, we just want to thank you for taking the time to join us today. Hopefully what was provided here is going to help your answer any data quality questions that you might have had. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to contact us at PSC. Here's our phone number and our email address. And again, if you are able to take a minute or two to take that survey at the end of this webinar, we would definitely appreciate it. It helps us improve on our future webinars. So we don't have any more questions right now. Again, we'll keep it open for another minute or two. We have a comment. One second. If there is another 30-day comment period for EDFacts, that leaves states very limited time to make data collection changes for 2019-20 school year. So we will make sure Ed sees that comment.
Yeah, and so the process for the OMB approval, Ed doesn't have any control over that, so it's a 60-day comment period, and then there's a required 30-day comment period. So, but we'll definitely take that back to the department. There's always a push to try to make that happen earlier so that states have an opportunity to make changes as soon as possible.
Okay. And we had a question that's always very popular. When is the Stats DC conference going to happen? Are there any potential dates? I know that they are busy working on finalizing all those details. As soon as we hear, we will definitely publish that in the support update. I'm not sure right now that they have anything finalized, though. But again, as soon as we hear, we'll let everybody know. So here's another comment about the conference. There's never enough time during the conference for getting into the details of EDFacts. Can the conference be extended a day? Again, that's something we will go back and give that comment back to the department. Don't have any more questions at this time. So I think we're going to go ahead and end the webinar. Again, if any questions come up that you didn't think of during the webinar, please contact us at PSC, and if we can't answer the question, we'll get that in front of the department as soon as possible. Thank you again to everybody for joining us today, and we hope you have a great rest of the day. Thank you.